ye daragara putrapta pranan vittamimam param Vitva mam sharanam yataha tam tam syaktumutsahe yedaragara putrapta pranan vittam imam param hitva mam sharanam yataha tam tam syaktumutsahe yedaragara putrapta pranan vittamimam param hitva mam sharanam yata katham tam syaktumutsahe. Yea, those devotees of mine who Dara, wife, Agara, house, Putra, children, sons, Apta, relatives, society, Pranan, even life, Vittam, wealth, Imam, all these, Param, elevation to the heavenly planets, or becoming one by merging into Brahman, Hitva, giving up all these ambitions and paraphernalia, Mam, unto me, Charanam, shelter, Yata, having taken, Katham, how, Tan, such persons, Tyaktum, to give them up, Utsahe, I can be enthusiastic. In that way, it is not possible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? Please repeat this translation. Since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives, simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such devotees at any time? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the words Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Thus he is the well-wisher of the Brahmanas. Durvasa Muni was certainly a very great Brahmana, but because he was a non-devotee, he could not sacrifice everything in devotional service. Great mystic yogis are actually self-interested. The proof is that when Durvasa Muni created a demon to kill Maharaj Ambarisha, the king stayed fixed in his place, praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depending solely and wholly on him. Whereas when Durvasa Muni was chased by the Sudarshan Chakra by the supreme will of the Lord, he was so perturbed that he fled all over the world and try to take shelter in every nook and corner of the universe. At last, in fear of his life, he approached Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was so interested in his own body that he wanted to kill the body of a Vaishnava. Therefore, he did not have very good intelligence. And how can an unintelligent person be delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The Lord certainly tries to give all protection to his devotees who have given up everything for the sake of serving him. Another point in this verse is that attachment to Daragar, Putrapta, home, wife, children, friendship, society, and love is not the way to achieve the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to hearth and home for material pleasure cannot become a pure devotee. Sometimes a pure devotee may have a habit or attraction for wife, children, and home, but at the same time want to serve the Supreme Lord to the best of his ability. For such a devotee, the Lord makes a special arrangement to take away the objects of For such a devotee, the Lord makes a special arrangement to take away the objects of his false attachment and thus free him from attachment to wife, home, children, friends, and so on. This is special mercy bestowed upon the devotee to bring him back home, back to Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Whose is that? So this verse is spoken by the Supreme Lord to Durvasa Muni. And it is very instructive for all of us. Because even after taking to devotional service, we don't give up material attachments. When you are doing that, everybody's attention goes there. See, attention is very difficult to get focused on Krishna or Krishna conscious things. Attention is hungry for all other diversions, distractions. Because that's our attachment. We are materially attached. We don't have spiritual attachment. So after we take to devotional service, we want to give up material attachment. But it doesn't go away, even though we want to. It's not that devotees are not sincere or they are not desiring to give up material attachment. But even if I want to give up, it is not easy. It won't go. And Maya is always there to cheat us. Just take the example of a householder. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, naturally he is attached to his wife, his children, his home. Even assuming that wife, home, children are all favorable for his devotional service. After he takes to devotional service, a fortunate householder will preach to his wife, children, and they'll also become devotees. They'll also take to Krishna consciousness, and his home will become a temple. Everybody will very nicely cooperate to make the home a temple. But this attachment for wife, home and children is not conducive for advancement in Krishna consciousness. Even if the wife is a devotee, even if the home is a temple, it is not conducive for advancement in Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada says here, one who is attached to hearth and home for material pleasure cannot become a pure devotee. So somebody may say, Prabhu, I am not attached for any material pleasure to my home. I am attached to my home because it is a nice place for doing bhakti. What am I doing at home? I am chanting, I am reading Bhagavatam. All my family members are also engaged in devotional service. So my home is the temple. So what's wrong being attached to the temple? Now the point is, attachment for home, for material pleasure, the comforts available at home, that is the real point of attachment, not the deities, not the devotional service. What is the proof that Krishna forbid the householder grihastha becomes little sick? Then immediately excuse, oh, I cannot chant, I cannot come to temple. Why? Because I am sick. And then slowly, because this body is most unreliable. We don't know when the health may get upset. Any time it can happen. And then, supposing the person has to be separated from his wife and children. Let's say the wife and children go to some pilgrimage where he cannot accompany. Then he will feel so disturbed at home that I am not getting my usual comforts. That becomes such a botheration that person is not even able to do his routine activities, even in devotional service. I cannot chant, I cannot read. So the fact is, our attachments even in the name of devotional service, is not for devotional service. Our attachments are for material comforts, material pleasure, material enjoyment. That's why Prabhupada says here, one who is attached to home for material pleasure cannot become a pure devotee. So how do we give up this attachment for material comforts, material pleasures? Therefore, Shastra says that you have to take up some austerity. If you want to advance in Krishna consciousness, you have to take up more and more austerity. That is automatically there in devotional service. More and more austerity is automatically there. There is no need to artificially try to take up some austere measures. Just like one may be attached to sleeping very nicely, but cutting down on the sleeping, especially after the body becomes old, the demand of the body for sleep reduces. Demand of the body for sleep reduces. Except, of course, when there is sickness, that's different. But otherwise, if one is not having any sickness, then the body doesn't demand as much sleep as it used to when the person was more physically active. As the physical activity reduces, it has to reduce when the body becomes weak due to old age. The physical activity has to reduce. Correspondingly, the sleep also has to come down. Eating has to come down. These are all interconnected. Eating, sleeping is dependent on how much physical activity one does. You can very easily understand this if you ever see these menial laborers, how they eat, how much quantity they eat. Because they do so much of physical work, they'll eat so much quantity. And also they can't eat things like rice and all. They have to eat some other grains. Like typically in Karnataka, South Karnataka at least, they eat ragi instead of rice. Because their need of the body is like that. So, in spite of body becoming old, weak, those who are attached to eating and sleeping, they will not cut down. Rather, their demands become very difficult. I remember very clearly, we had a neighbor when I was staying in one place. I was just school going, young student. So our neighbor used to complain that there was a very old man in the house. And they used to say that he's become very weak and he cannot digest, but he demands, varieties of preparations. So the people of the house, they are very, very nice people. So they try to satisfy his demands, but he is not able to digest. So you should cut down. Instead of cutting down, he is telling you are not preparing properly. My stomach is getting upset. You should prepare in such a way that it is agreeable for my stomach. So if they prepare something agreeable for his stomach, he'll say it's not tasty, it's not properly made. You see, the tongue is very difficult to control, it's a fact. But then one has to realize when the body has become old, you cannot expect that you will get very, very palatable food which you can digest. All those days are over. When somebody was young, it's different. They eat something which is little rich food. They can digest it. It's okay. But when the body cannot digest, so therefore, Shastra says, Panchashordhvam vanam vrajet. After 50 years of age, one should leave home and go away to the forest. Now, that doesn't literally mean you have to leave home. The spirit is that give up this eating rich food, living very comfortably at home, demanding from the family members so many different conveniences. That has to be given up. Doesn't mean literally you have to leave home, because practically speaking, it's not possible nowadays to go to the forest. So, this austerity measures, that is the real test. That is the real test. Moment somebody starts aging and then give up eating all kinds of palatable food, then it is relatively easier to maintain the health. Otherwise, it becomes difficult. And even if somebody is not having health issues, they will never be satisfied, especially in old age, simply by demanding very, very palatable food and trying to satisfy the tongue. Tongue can never be satisfied. If somebody tries to cater to the demands of the tongue, you can never satisfy it. In fact, this 11th canto of the Bhagavatam says, even if a person has controlled all the senses except the tongue, he is said to be totally uncontrolled because he has not conquered the tongue. That's why bhakti begins when one engages the tongue in two activities. Tongue has got two activities, tasting and speaking. So when you start chanting Hare Krishna and start taking only prasadam, tasting only prasadam, then your bhakti, devotional service has begun. Otherwise, it is not possible. Without controlling the tongue, without minimizing the demands of the tongue, it is not possible to get sense control, and without sense control, there is no question of yoga practice, including bhakti yoga. Nobody can be a yogi if they don't control their senses. And of all the senses, this tongue is the most difficult to control. Then, attachment to wife. It doesn't mean that one has to simply forsake the wife and just go away. No, that is not the spirit of giving up attachment to wife. It is giving up attachment to the comforts that the wife is giving. That has to be given up. Again, giving up attachment to children is the same spirit. Not that one has to just forsake the children. No. It is the comforts and the facilities and the sweet words that the children may give to the father or mother. That has to be given up. So, it is described here by Krishna, by Lord Narayana, that since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches and even their lives simply to serve me, without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next. This is the characteristic of pure devotee. They are completely detached within the heart. Ambarish Maharaj is living in a palace. He is the king. He is living with his wife and children and his opulence, power, everything. But he is detached. What is the test that he is detached? That is explained very nicely in the purport here. That Durvasa Muni was certainly a very great Brahmana, but because he was a non-devotee, he could not sacrifice everything in devotional service. He could not sacrifice. Durvasa Muni's position was tested by this particular incident. It is explained here, great mystic yogis are actually self-interested. They have a selfish interest. Even though they perform severe austerities to get these mystic powers, is not easy. So much austerities they have to undergo. But after getting the powers, what do they do with those powers? They want to enjoy with those powers. They want to enjoy name, fame, respect. So what is the point that Durvasa Muni is behaving like this? Because he feels Ambarish Maharaj has not given me proper respect. This is the whole thing. Though the fact is, Ambarish Maharaj is giving proper respect to Durvasa Muni, he is misunderstood. Even if the misunderstanding is a mistake, that doesn't matter. But how is he reacting to that? The proof is that when Durvasa Muni created a demon to kill Maharaj Ambarisha, Ambarish Maharaj stayed fixed in his place, praying to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depending solely and wholly on the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, what happens if somebody is not detached from all their possessions or their people, whatever? Immediately when there is danger, they think of the object of attachment. And that's what Durvasa Muni did. What happened to Durvasa Muni? You see, Ambarish Maharaj, when his life was in danger, he simply prayed to the Supreme Lord, depending completely on the Lord's protection alone and nothing else. Nothing else. Whereas, see Durvasa Muni's reaction. Now, Lord Vishnu sent the Sudarshan Chakra, Narayana sent the Sudarshan Chakra. Durvasa Muni, whereas when Durvasa Muni was chased by Sudarshan Chakra, by the supreme will of the Lord, he was so perturbed that he fled all over the world and tried to take shelter in every nook and corner of the universe. So where is his dependence on Krishna? A very analogous situation, Bhishma on the battlefield. Bhishma was fighting on the side of the Kauravas. It's not that Bhishma did not know the Kauravas are wrong. He knew that. But by the will of the Lord, Bhishma was taking the side of the Kauravas. He made an excuse that they have maintained me, so I cannot refuse their request. But when on the battlefield, Duryodhana, before the one particular day, the previous evening, Duryodhana was telling Bhishma that you are on our side and you are not fighting with your full strength because the Pandavas are not conquered, not killed yet. You are the greatest warrior. Kuru Vriddhaha. He is the most experienced general. And Prabhupada describes in the purport, in front of Bhishma, Bhima and Arjuna are like figs. They are like very insignificant warriors. So Duryodhana is pointing out, you are on our side. And these Pandavas, still they are fighting with so much of vigor. You are not killed them, you are not defeated them. So Bhishma became very angry. What do you mean? So he took a vow that tomorrow I am going to kill all the 5 Pandavas. I am not going to spare them tomorrow. I am going to kill them in the battle. So Bhishma was fighting so ferociously that Arjuna's life was in danger. Now Krishna, he has taken a vow that he is not going to, use any weapon. But when his devotee's life is in danger, Bhishma knew this, that either Arjuna has to die or Krishna has to break his promise and protect Arjuna. One of the two things will happen. And Bhishma knew Krishna will never let Arjuna die. So he knew that Krishna will break his promise. And Krishna will actually take up a weapon and protect Arjuna. Exactly as Bhishma had thought, when Arjuna's life was in danger, Krishna got down from the chariot, simply took one wheel of a broken wheel of a chariot, and using that as a chakra went to attack Bhishma. What did Bhishma do? He surrendered to Krishna. Why? Because he's a devotee. He is thinking, Bhishma is thinking, if at all I have to die, anyway I have to die. Nobody can live forever in this body. So what better opportunity for putting the body than dying at the hands of Krishna? So Bhishma surrendered and said, if you are going to kill me, that's the most glorious death for me. Immediately Krishna stopped. Because the rules of the battle are such that if somebody surrenders, they don't kill. A Kshatriya will never kill a surrendered soul. That's how Parikshit Maharaj also spared the life of Kali Purusha. Everybody is thinking Kali Purusha should have been killed by Parikshit. We wouldn't have had this problem of Kali Yuga. But then Kali Purusha surrendered and sought shelter. And Parikshit Maharaj has to give as a king. First of all, he cannot kill the surrendered soul. And secondly, when he is seeking shelter, he has to give him protection. You see? This is called providence. Destiny. So Kali Yuga, we are destined to live in these circumstances where Kali Purusha has got shelter and is actually Adharma Bandhu, is a friend of religion. Anyway, that's a different topic, without digressing. So Bhishma surrendered. You see, Bhishma's life is in danger because he is a devotee, he surrendered. Whereas Durvasa Muni, even though he is a great Brahmana, and Krishna is Go Brahmana Hitayacha. Why will Krishna attack a Brahmana? It is because this Brahmana is a non-devotee. So whenever Krishna says, I am well-wisher of the Brahmanas, it means a Brahmana Vaishnava. A Vaishnava Brahmana, not a Avaishnava Brahmana. Avaishnava Brahmana is not a real Brahmana. He is a namesake Brahmana. He is an envious person. A Brahmana is non-envious. Brahmana is non-envious. These non-devotee Brahmanas are envious of Krishna and envious of devotees of Krishna, particularly. So it is clearly proved that he even approached Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this Durvasa Muni, to save his life. He was so interested in his own body that he wanted to kill the body of a Vaishnava. How much is attached to his body? And that's what exactly Lord Narayana is telling. My pure devotees, they are not attached to their body or their family members, because their attachment is for me. So from this we understand, devotee means attached to Krishna. And attachment to Krishna means no other attachment. Exclusive attachment to Krishna. We discussed this in the previous class. Taking shelter of Krishna means taking shelter of Krishna alone. Not that I have so many other shelters, I also have shelter of Krishna. No. That is not taking shelter of Krishna. That is not taking shelter of Krishna. Taking shelter of Krishna or attached to Krishna means attached to Krishna alone, or taking shelter of Krishna alone. So Durvasa Muni, he is approaching the Supreme Lord, even though the Supreme Lord is anyway meant for protecting Brahmanas. He is the topmost well-wisher of everyone. And he is also specially the well-wisher of the Brahmanas, even more than other general living entities. So why should he be afraid? He knows the Sudarshan Chakra is the weapon of the Supreme Lord. Why should he be afraid? Why should he be afraid? That's why also it is said in the Shastra, somebody may have knowledge, but that knowledge, if it is not realized knowledge, that knowledge is useless. Durvasa Muni doesn't know the Supreme Lord is the well-wisher of the Brahmanas, well-wisher of everyone, and especially the well-wisher of the Brahmanas. Why should he think the Supreme Lord is against me? Why should he be afraid? That means his knowledge is not realized knowledge. So knowledge doesn't become realized knowledge till one takes up devotional service. There are some so-called devotees. They study all the books, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, everything. But they don't do any practical devotional service. So they become theoretical scholars of all these scriptures. They can quote so many verses. They can give nice class. But useless. All that is useless. When death comes, they don't know how to take shelter of Krishna. They don't know how to take shelter of Krishna. So therefore, knowledge without realization is useless. This Prabhupada says in one purport in Bhagavad Gita. Does somebody know which purport? Book knowledge without realization is useless. This is the first sentence of the purport. 5th chapter. I don't remember the verse. Quickly open. We'll close the class with this point. This verse is quoted there. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Grahyam Indriyayi. Is there Bhagavad Gita here? Give me the Gita. Haribol. I'll quickly get it. Otherwise, a lot of time is. 6.8. Huh? Yeah. This 6.8, not 5th chapter. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. Here, Jnana and Vijnana both are used. So Prabhupada is particularly telling the difference between Jnana and Vijnana. So in the purport it is said, no one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality and pastimes of Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental name, form, quality and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. Krishna has to reveal. Then only one gets realization. So simply studying books without practical service is not going to be effective. And again, there are people who do a lot of so-called service, but never hear or never read, either reading or hearing, the glories of Krishna. So such people also, their service or their work, even work in devotion, so-called devotional service, will be fruitive activity. It will become pious activity. So as a result of doing service without hearing, without reading or hearing or learning the Krishna consciousness philosophy, without that, they become very, very fruitive. That means they'll become very, very pious people because they're doing devotional service. They become very pious and they will enjoy in a pious way all the results of their pious activities. Devotional service becomes pious activity, punya. They'll accumulate so much punya and they'll become very, very rich, or they may be transferred to heavenly planets, or even in the earth before they are quitting the body, they become very, very, very rich. I heard about one devotee who was in a Bangalore temple. So he left the temple due to some reason, and then later on he went to America. One of our devotees who is now in America as a full-time missionary, he happened to meet this devotee. He is now a car salesperson and he's fabulously rich. So our devotee asks, "Are you still chanting?" And sometimes I chant. I don't get time to chant because he's busy with his work, and then the money they get, they have to make plans for spending it. Investment. If they don't spend an investment, you see what happens? That's why it is important to hear or read or understand the philosophy and also do practical service. Also do some practical service. That's why in the life of Ambarish Maharaj, this is very much stressed, that he engaged all his senses in devotional service appropriately. Hands, legs, voice, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, everything has to be engaged. This is very important. One should not imitate Parikshit Maharaj. If I sit and hear, it's enough. Of course, those who have a taste for hearing, that is enough. They have developed a spiritual taste for hearing Krishna's glories. That's good enough. But till we develop that taste, we also have to engage in some menial service. We have to do menial service. Shringara Tanmandira Marjanado. The spiritual master engages the devotees in decorating the deity and in cleansing the temple of the deity. Mandira Marjana. This is very, very, very important. But somebody is doing Mandira Marjana and not hearing, not understanding or reading or hearing about the glories of Krishna, then again that becomes Punya Karma. That becomes Punya Karma. So, devotional service, to get spiritual benefit out of devotional service, it has to be done properly. That's why Shastra says you require guidance. You require guidance. Somebody who is not taking guidance, there is every possibility that even if they are actually engaged in devotional service, it will become Punya Karma. Or even if they are sitting and hearing without proper guidance, then they will simply sit here, become attached. Like there are people who attend Bhagavat Saptaha. I met one person. He said, I have attended 1,000 Bhagavat Saptaha. All the time he is looking, where is Bhagavat Saptaha? Anywhere there is Bhagavat Saptaha, he'll go and sit and hear. And he'll nicely hear, eating nourishing food. But don't do any physical activity. Then how do they assimilate that nourishing food? You see? And there's somebody else who's working, but not taking proper nourishing food. What happens? The body keeps on becoming weaker and weaker, and you see? Both are required. Nourishing food is required for the body, and the body to be maintained also nicely has to be, some physical activity has to be there. Food you eat should be digested and assimilated. So if you don't eat nourishing food, then again the body is lacking in nourishment. And simply eating nourishing food and not digesting or assimilating it properly, that is also not going to keep the body healthy. Similarly, our spiritual life, we have to hear or read or chant. That is like food. But that food to be digested, spiritual food to be digested and assimilated, one has to do some practical service, menial service, especially menial service. That's why everywhere it is said, Mandira Marjana, Mandira Marjana. Everybody has to do some Mandira Marjana. Whatever you can do, please do it. Mandira Marjana is very, very, very important. In fact, sometimes we think that why should we have housekeeping people cleaning this temple hall? Actually, we should not have housekeeping people. We should have all of you cleaning the temple. Collectively you can do it. One person cannot do it. It's a very big temple hall. Collectively you can do. So I am proposing to our general manager that next Sunday onwards, if it is feasible, then after the morning Bhagavatam class and prasadam, all the devotees should together clean up this entire temple hall. It should become spick and span. The fans, the tube lights, the corners, the younger ones can go up and clean. Elderly people can do. Just even if you clean little, that this thing, that asana of Prabhupada, even if elderly people can do little cleaning there, that is also cleaning. Everybody should take up the cleaning and nicely organize this, and in 1 hour the whole temple should be pakka, clean. That way you would have cleaned your heart. So this is one practical suggestion I have after hearing this class. Is it all right? Loudly. We will see this Sunday. This Sunday there is fasting till noon. Day after tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Still you can do some little cleaning. It's okay. Those who cannot remain hungry, you may take some anukalpa and then still do the service. So both of these are important. So Durvasa Muni's example is here. No realized knowledge. No realized knowledge. So much knowledge he's got. He's got very good knowledge. See, he is only telling that you can deliver even a person who's meant for going to hell simply by awakening the holy name of your Lordship in his heart. So much philosophy he is telling. And then that philosophy is not realized. In his own life, he is not applying that. Why he has to run? Simply he chants the name of the Lord and prays to the Lord, kindly protect me, over, finished. Why he has to go running here and there to every devata, every nook and corner of the universe? Some Sumeru mountain, some cave he is going with his mystic power. Why he has to do that? Not required. He himself is telling that. It's not somebody else's words. See how knowledge is useless if it is not realized knowledge. That's why Please don't mechanically chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, looking at the beats, always trying to complete. No. You should hear. And also combine chanting with some practical service, menial service. The other senses have to be engaged also. Especially the senses of action have to be engaged. Senses of action have to be engaged. Then you can actually advance very quickly, very nicely in devotional service. And then you also become detached automatically in the heart. Not that you have to leave home, you have to leave your family, no. You become detached within the heart. That means you develop attachment for Krishna. And such attachment is exclusive. That means you have to give up other attachments if you want attachment for Krishna. So then, how does such a person live in midst of family and children and home? Lives detached way means lives and does everything as a duty. It is my duty to take care of my family. I'll do that, but without attachment. That means you don't take any commission out of doing your duty. You don't demand from them, I am doing so much for you, what are you doing for me? No. No demands. As a duty means no demands. You do your duties. But within the heart, no demands, no attachments for comforts, for pleasure, for material satisfaction, for material comforts, material enjoyment, no attachment. And then automatically spiritual attachment to Krishna will awaken in the heart. It is already there. It simply has to be awakened by purification. That will automatically happen. Okay, I'll stop here. Antara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.